Alright, what up? We're back for the Anki for Make It Stick. What do we got for flashcards to do today? Got 2 of them. What are the 8 sections of chapter 3? Mix up your practice. The myth of max practice, spaced practice, interleaf practice, varied practice, developing discrimination skills, improving complex mastery for medical students. These principles are broadly applicable. The takeaway. What is chapter 4? Embrace difficulties about 1 sentence. Basically, desirable difficulties, which are spaced, or we say retrieval / testing, spaced retrieval, interleaved practice, varied practice, generation. Right, what is generation again? It's like creating. But now there was a more specific term for it. There is a more specific meaning for generation in that chapter. That's gonna actually eat me alive. I don't know, but it's one of the desirable difficulties. It will come back in a day or two. And then some contextual / fluency interferences or interruptions. These desirable difficulties, they impede short-term learning or short-term gains, but they improve simultaneously long-term gains, largely through increased cognitive effort. All right. Yeah. Yep. Good. Very good. So that's all the flashcards. What would generation be? This was like filling in the gaps. It's like having blanks in words. That's generation, right? That's also a contextual fluency interruption. I think of generation as creation, but I know there's a more specific definition in here, but we'll leave it for now. Generative learning. Generative learning. That is learning through hands-on experience. That's learning from doing, trial and error. There we go. Told you it'd come back. Okay. So what did we read about yesterday and make it stick? I know we finished, we're through the mental models section, right? I don't know if we finished it yesterday, but we're done with that. Let's recall the next section though right now. This section is called Unskilled and Unaware of It. And we're talking about Justin Kruger and David Dunning, the Dunning-Kruger effect. You may have heard that term before. So that's largely about what this stuff is in this section so far. So one thing is, people who are incompetent and not improving, largely the reason they're remaining incompetent is because it's likely that they have an inability to see or to assess their own performance accurately. So they can't even, they don't even see like that they're doing poorly. So they don't see anything to improve. So they remain incompetent. So Kruger and Dunning, they've shown that increasing the ability to accurately self-assess performance is a way to basically break these people out of their incompetence. It's a great way to do so. Right, there are 3 studies discussed in this section so far, and they're all on logical exams, basically exams testing logic and logical abilities. And the first study found that the people with the lowest exam scores, they then asked, they had them take an exam, and then they asked them, how well do you think you did? Guess your percentage correct or whatever, your grade, without telling them their grade. And so the people that performed the lowest, the finding was that they actually had the most inaccurate assessment of their own performance. They thought they did, the gap between what they thought they did and their actual performance was the largest. That is the most incompetent people, or the lowest scoring people. Okay, the second study found that The second study found that, so basically in the second study, they asked them to self-assess, right? And then it's the same as the first study, except for now they give them the answers of someone else. Okay, so they let the students or the test examiners look at answers from other students or test examiners, and then they're asked to reassess their performance again. And again, we see that the most incompetent, the lowest scoring people, the benefit, the increase in accuracy on the second self-assessment after they saw someone else's answers was the least significant. People that were, did better, they got to see other people's exams or other people's answers, and then they were better, like, yeah, I think I got this one right. Oh, no, I think this guy got it wrong. I got that one right. But the people that were most incompetent were just like, no, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, I've got them all right. These guys didn't know what they're doing. Like, apparently, that's kind of the idea. Then the third study, I should say, the third study found. What did the third study find? The third study found, so they took the people that scored the worst, the bottom quartile, and they gave half of them a 10-minute lecture on something to do with logic, some logical principles, or they got taught a lesson on logic, whereas the other group got taught something irrelevant. This did show, however, the group that studied after the exam were then better able to self-assess after they did learn some stuff. So they were better able to self-assess when they got some more objective knowledge, some objective what is right and wrong in the subject, incorrect or correct. So that's a good finding, that increasing general knowledge of the subject so that you can better self-assess your performance does increase your ability to self-assess your performance. It's kind of a roundabout logic, but okay, that's fine. We're just gonna keep moving. Right. So why were the people that scored the worst the most overconfident about their performance? Well, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Hold on, that was not the right thing. Why are people that are incompetent, why do they remain incompetent? Why can they not self-assess their performance? Well, there's some theories that Dunning and Kruger postulate, and they say, well, in the real world, the amount of feedback you get about how you actually are performing is pretty rare. Much rarer than like a school or something. Like when you're in the work environment, you have to have a good manager in order to actually get good feedback. So there's a lack of lots of performance feedback. So that's part of it. Another part is when people do get feedback, it's a natural tendency for people to blame others, blame external circumstances, not take responsibility for their own like shortcoming. And then third, there was something else, but it's kind of this vicious cycle of, you're incompetent, you're ignoring the external signs, you think you're fine, so there's nothing to improve on, so you never, take any steps to improve your skills because you don't need to improve because you don't see anything wrong with your performance. The third thing is that people that are incompetent probably have, it's very probably common for them to actually assess other people's performance as well. And so they have nothing to compare to, so they can't see like, this guy's better than me or worse than me, or I'm better than this guy at this or worse at this. So yeah. Let's see what we missed. Why do incompetent people fail to learn through experience? This is what I'm saying. lack of feedback. Why do incompetent people fail to learn from experience? Right? They're not getting good feedback. They're ignoring feedback. They can't compare themselves to others well or assess other people's performance. Okay. Okay. And the one thing I missed from the mental model section was basically like one of the dangers of mental models or traps is to over rely on the mental models you've currently developed and just see all the problems in the world basically as, your mental models can solve them, and lack the ability to see when, a new problem or situation requires a different mental model or skills that you don't currently have fully developed or developed at all. This is kind of like the analogy that I think of when people become a specialist. They're like analogously, they have a hammer and they see all the problems in the world as a nail. So they're smacking everything like, oh, that's a nail, that's a nail, that's a nail, that's a nail. But in reality, there's, screws and there's staples and there's paint and there's electrical wiring and you're hitting everything with the hammer because that's all you know. Right? Yeah, I could do that. Bang, 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 smack everything with your current mental model. Instead of developing new skills, you learn a screwdriver, learn how to sawed and you learn how to drill and all these other things, paint. All right. So that was a long recall, but we're going to continue now reading, and I'll be back to recall in a bit. All right, guys, just finished up the section called Unskilled and Unaware of It. There's a lot here. Right. First of all, different domains, different industries lend themselves to better or worse, more or less objective feedback on performance. Ideally, we want more. The more objective feedback on performance we can gather, the more we can improve. Like, that's critical, because otherwise you don't know what you're good at, what you're doing poorly at, what you need to improve, etc. Okay. Another reason why testing is so important, so beneficial. Okay. So, right. The way our brain is and our mind works and the way we navigate the world is full of shortcuts and hiccups, and it's easily led astray, misled, and deceived by illusions. And this very brain is what directs our learning, what we should learn and how to do it, how to learn it. Okay? Something that kind of challenged my views a little bit is that, like, most students will actually do better with a teacher or professor or mentor or guide, because actually most students, and I might be included in this, I'm open to being wrong, but most students don't know where they should be putting their attention and energy and effort. That makes sense. Or how to do so and how long to take. Whereas someone that has more experience, knowledge at teaching and doing in the field can see where your weaknesses are, see where your blinders are, see what you don't know, and guide you to improve. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense indeed. And right, it's weird because if I was not self-directing my learning, then I would never have gotten to reading this book that led to me realizing that maybe this isn't the most efficient learning method. It's a weird balance. Partially the reason why students also would be better off and guided by a teacher is because they don't use good study techniques, effective study techniques. Most students don't use retrieval, and those that do, this is surprising. Most students don't even know retrieval is the most effective learning technique, and those that do often do not persist long enough to actually reap the full benefits and learning from retrieval. And that makes me think like, okay, am I doing, I'm going slowly through this book, but really I'm only retrieving, the information once or twice, which they said is not enough, really. This is a different type of retrieval rather than like rote memorizing vocab like they're referring to. This is foreign vocab. This is like conceptual development. And the total amount of retrievals I've done on this book, we're talking in the hundreds, maybe near 200 total retrievals. Probably not quite, over 100 though. So then I've got Anki flashcards, which I do, and I've done them so many times. Like certain cards from the beginning of the book, I've probably done 10 times, maybe. But yeah, really, the goal is, how do we actually self-assess better? Well, we get objective measurements. And this is where testing is so valuable. Testing is it's the best way to get an objective memory test, or objective measurement. Oh, you passed, you failed, right? You got this right, you got this wrong. Testing is great for this. Objective performance metrics. And so overall, this section, unskilled and unknown and unaware of it, really is about kind of this trap of incompetence, this like little trap, but really it's about, from my perspective, what's important to me is that objective understanding, like accurate self-awareness, self-assessment, self-understanding of current abilities, knowledge, and performance is critical for learning. I think that is a great way to sum it up. Okay. Cool. Great. So that's that section complete. We are now into tomorrow we'll begin tools and habits for calibrating your judgment. Here we go. I'm sure testing will be a big one. Oh, this is the last section. This is the last section of Avoid Illusions of Knowing. Wow. Time flies, dude. But really, this book is 253 pages, and we are now on 125, so we're just about, tomorrow we'll be almost exactly halfway through, so. All right, that's it for today, guys. I will talk to you later. See ya.